Trending topic out of Manchester United this morning is that Marcus Rashford's future at the club is remaining increasingly uncertain heading into 2025. According to sources from The Telegraph and Luke Edwards, the club are reportedly concerned with Marcus Rashford's off-field activity and fear that it has had an adverse effect onto his on-field performances. Now, me personally, I continue to stress this almost every single video. I try very, very hard to ignore anything that has to do with off-field activity because A, I don't live a life that pertains to me having any knowledge on what these guys do outside of a football pitch over the 90 minutes. I don't know them. I don't know their personality like that. So it's not up for me, in my opinion, to really question their personality. I try and keep it on the pitch, performance-wise. So we're going to leave that side to The Telegraph. I'm going to just focus on Marcus Rashford and his future at Manchester United. Let's be very, very frank here in this video. Let's keep it very, very real. Marcus Rashford is rightfully under the microscope when it comes to his Man United future. This report and the rumors and any way you want to dress this up, it's not coming out of nowhere here. When you look at Rashford's performances over the last 2 seasons, following that amazing debut campaign he had under Erik ten Hag, where he scored all those goals, was named player of the season for the club, and received, of course, a huge bumper deal, which made him the second highest paid player at the club on £300,000 a week. Quite frankly, the only way I can say this is the value in Marcus Rashford's production and his performances have failed, and in my opinion, failed drastically to match the salary and the status he now has at the club. And honestly, guys, I think I can genuinely say this pretty confidently. I think if this was any other player in this situation other than Marcus Rashford, who over the last 2 or so years were putting in these performances and these numbers and was on this amount of money, I think the consensus opinion from the entire fan base and from the club as well too would be, we need to move on from him. The thing with Rashford is it almost is never about the football. And I mean that on both sides, right? In one sense, I genuinely hate hearing from the media and hearing from articles like this about Rashford's personal life and speculating on his mentality and speculating on does he take football serious. That for me, it annoys me. It annoys me when they highlight his trips to New York. It annoys me when they highlight his relationships. It really annoys me because it takes away from, for me, what is the most important thing, his performances. The reality is, strip all of that away. In my opinion, it's irrelevant to the conversation here. How is Marcus Rashford performing on a football pitch should always be the number one concern for fans and the media, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And I almost feel like when we focus so much on what's happening off the pitch, it completely erases anything that I'm talking about here. So we're going to leave that to the side, like I said, and just look at the performance levels. They have not been anywhere near good enough. And like I said, if this was any other player in his current situation, it'd be a no-brainer. You have to move on. But with Rashford, I think the fact that he is from the academy, he has been here from the absolute start, and he has given so much to the club in previous seasons, means that as a fan base, I sometimes feel like there's like a pushback against kind of accepting a consensus objective opinion on the guy. No one really wants to be truthful about Rashford because the reality is we all love him. Even the guys who are massive critics of him, they still have a soft spot for him. And I get it. Like I tell this story a million times, right? My first game ever at Old Trafford as a fan was Marcus Rashford's debut against Midtjylland. That was the first time I ever went to go watch Man United at Old Trafford in 2016. And it was the first time he ever played a game for the club. Incredible debut. I was also there for my second game ever at Old Trafford a few days later against Arsenal, his Premier League debut, where he again scored 2 goals. So more so than anything, I understand what I'm talking about here because I had how do I say this? Not an attachment, right? But I was rooting for the guy massively. Seeing a kid from the academy who more so than anybody should understand what it means to play for Manchester United have that great of an impact on the first time I ever went to go watch my club at Old Trafford. How could I not love the guy? How could I not have like a feeling whenever he kind of played? How could I not root for him at all times? So I completely get it. But if we peel back the sentiments here and peel back the emotions and just look at the cold, hard, raw facts, the reality is I think Rashford's time at the club is coming to an end. Let's look at the last 4 seasons, for example. In the last 4 seasons, including this one, Marcus Rashford has managed to score more than 11 goals in the Premier League for this club one single time. And as you guys know, I'm not a huge numbers guy. For me, there's more to a game than statistics. So this isn't me trying to paint Rashford's game purely on numbers. But if we're also being objective here, Marcus Rashford is a forward whose game predominantly revolves around his threat at goal. And every player has to be judged in their own way, but Rashford is largely judged on the numbers he puts, the goals that he scores, the chances he creates. So when you look at the numbers I'm talking about here, they aren't out of this world. And yes, it shouldn't be fair maybe to stack him up to a Mohamed Salah. But on the flip side, for a player who's 26, turning 27 very, very soon, he's supposed to be in the prime of his career. And again, I repeat, the money that we're paying for him for, again, I'm not asking him to be Mohamed Salah and consistently be a 20 goal a season player, but pretty damn near. The amount of money we're paying him, Liverpool are like shuddering to pay him. Liverpool would rather not spend the amount of money that we're paying for Marcus Rashford on Mohamed Salah. So when we talk about expectation here, again, asking him to score 20 goals a season, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, especially in such a dysfunctional side. But when I'm looking at some of these numbers here, 4 goals in the Premier League this season, 3 basically in the last 4 games, by the way, 7 last season. Obviously, he had that huge campaign in Eric Ten Hag's first season with 17, 4 in 21-22, 11 in 2021. For a player that, again, obviously year by year, he's getting older, but he's now approaching his prime years, and the amount of money that we've been paying him for the last few seasons, that's not a great return. That's not a great return whatsoever. And those are just his numbers. Now you look at his general play. And these days, Rashford's general play is average. It's average. I don't know the exact numbers, right? But based purely on the eye, the amount of times he's taking on his players and then on top of that, successfully beating them can't be higher than it was a few seasons ago. I'm sorry. I'd be massively shocked if it was the case. He's not, for say, like putting chances on a play for other guys. He's not a 90-minute threat every single time he gets the ball. Something is kind of happening. At the moment, yeah, in terms of natural talent, which you can never kind of strip away from Rashford. We know how gifted he is, his physical, his technical skill set. But in terms of his performance levels, I'm sorry, I see a lot of the time people get upset on social media when he doesn't start a game. How is Garnacho starting over him? And in terms of pure ability, yeah, Rashford's a more talented player than Garnacho. In my opinion, it's not even close. But in terms of performance levels, you watch the guy come on in games and that annoyance you maybe have that he didn't start the game quickly goes away, because when you actually watch him play, he doesn't really stake a claim that he has to be playing every single minute. And then again, I go back to how much we're paying him, his status at the club, how much we're revering him. Does it really make sense to continue having this guy around at this point simply because we all have a common love for him? In my opinion, we got to be brutally honest here, and we have to be brutally ruthless here. I don't think so. I think the best decision Manchester United can make, I wouldn't do it in January, because January it's tough to make those kinds of sales and signings. But in the summer, I believe the best course of action for this club is to sell Marcus Rashford. I also think the best course of action for Marcus Rashford in the summer is to sell Marcus Rashford. Like I said, Rashford, in my opinion, there is no doubt that there is a talent there. No doubt about it. There are too many big moments. There's too many examples of his skills being on display for me to believe that Rashford is not good. I don't believe that. But when it comes to football, there's more that comes into it than just being talented. Sometimes environment has a huge deal to kind of play here. And I'd also be massively hypocritical here if I were to ignore that, let's be real, Rashford, since he's been at the club, has never had a stable environment to kind of pursue his development and ultimately become the player that when we first saw him burst onto the scene, we all thought he could kind of be. That's never happened. And you look at a lot of young players, not talented players at Man United, it's never happened for them either. So I'd be hypocritical to pretend like Rashford is the sole issue here. The club have also failed to platform him into the world-class player he probably should have been at this point in his career. And then I also think about it now. Since making his debut in 2016, he's had Louis van Gaal as a manager. He's had Jose Mourinho as a manager. He's had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a manager. He's had Ralf Rangnick as a manager. He's had Erik Ten Hag as a manager. And he now has Ruben Amorim as a manager. That's 6 managers in what? 8 years? That's concerning. And if I were him, I'm probably looking at the situation and saying, do I have another rebuild in me? In the space of those 8 years, how many times have Man United rebuilt the team, tried resetting, tried bringing in new players, a new manager, and tried portraying it as a massive club rebuild, and he's been involved in it? If I'm Marcus Rashford, I'm seeing another manager come through the door, another rebuild in process this upcoming summer, and probably thinking to myself as well too, do I have another rebuild in me? Do I have it in me to stay another kind of cycle hoping Man United can get back to the top? I probably don't. And if it were me, objectively, I'd clock out. And when I look at Rashford right now, again, hate trying to look at the personality and the human side of things. I try and keep it always football. But I can't help but look at Rashford these days and think to myself, he looks clocked out. It looks like a chore to play for Manchester United when I look at Marcus Rashford. It looks like a chore to him. And it should never be the case. It looks like a burden on his shoulders. When he comes off, doesn't really look that disappointed anymore. When he's warming up on the bench, or on the touchline doesn't really look that like it, the spark, the energy that Marcus Rashford once had. It doesn't kind of look there. He looks, I don't want to say disinterested, but it doesn't look like it really bothers him anymore. And that's not me attacking him here. I probably wouldn't be bothered anymore either, in terms of like, I've been here for so long and I've seen so much failure and we've tried resetting over and over and over again, that at this point, I don't know how much I'd really have in me anymore. And I genuinely believe at this point in his career, the best course of action for him is to leave Manchester, which has obviously been his home since he's been born. Try a new environment out. Try a different club. Get yourself out of your comfort zone and try and give yourself a boost in your career. I think that's the best course of action for him. And I wouldn't be surprised in 12 months if Marcus Rashford is firing at a different club. But at Man United, I don't think it's ever going to happen. So why continue persisting with this doomed to fail love thing that we have between United and Rashford, just because we think it has to happen? A local lad at the club, it has to happen. That's the way United fans think. Ultimately, there's every possibility that it's not meant to happen. And I think we're rapidly approaching that overall consensus amongst the fan base that for both to succeed, United might have to move on. And for Marcus Rashford to succeed, he might have to move on as well too. Now, finally, I've also seen from a lot of people who maybe do have that pushback on selling Marcus Rashford being, well, if you sell Marcus Rashford, who do you go and get? Because you have to get someone who's as talented as him or who produces as much as him. First of all, I think we're massively overrating Marcus Rashford's contributions to this team these days. I don't think it's that difficult to find somebody that can give him similar or better production these days. I'm reading you some of his numbers. We don't have guys, Vinicius Jr. right now at Manchester United. That's not the reality here. The potential, the idea, may be. But the current reality, no, we don't. So to replace this version of Marcus Rashford, or the Rashford we've seen for the last few seasons, isn't that difficult of a thing. But even if you believe that you want to get someone as talented as Rashford, I don't really think that's a priority for United. I always tell you guys, for me, the ultimate goal for every single player when they enter a pitch is, how can I help my team win? So Man United should be approaching the transfer window and ultimately replacing Rashford with that same mentality. What player, whether he's as good as Rashford or not in terms of individual talent, can help United become a better team? So even if you get, I think the big question here is, how much can you get from Marcus Rashford? What, 50 million, 60 million? When I look at what Havertz went for in the last few years, coming off poor seasons at Chelsea, Mason Mount, I think United would also expect to kind of bring back that amount of money. Some United fans might be underwhelmed by that, but I think the reality, you look at his wages, you look at how many years he has left, his age as well too. I would expect 60 million for Marcus Rashford. I think anything less, you have to start wondering, is that value for money here? But let's say you get 60 million along with the summer fee, the summer transfer fund that you already have from the club. If Man United go and sign 2 or 3 attackers in exchange for Rashford and, I don't know, Antony and Xerxes or Mason Mount, you kind of bring 3 out, 3 in. And those 3 players overall make Man United's attack better, even if none of the 3 are as good as Marcus Rashford individually. If you think that, I'd rather have that than Marcus Rashford. I would. If you tell me you're going to sign Anthony Gordon, you're going to sign Mateus Cunha, and you're going to sign, I don't know, Joao Pedro. I don't know. Just throwing those names out. And those 3 players ultimately elevate Man United's ceiling as a team, elevate their floor, help Man United score more goals, and bring Man United more success. Even if you don't think any of those 3 are as good as Marcus Rashford, you as a team have improved. That has to be the priority for Manchester United. And I would say that's good business. So I'm seeing all these people saying, oh, I'm only willing to replace Rashford with Vinny or Mbappe or Leao or Kvaratskhelia. We don't have to sign those guys to replace Rashford to become a better team. When Arsenal sold Aubameyang and brought in Gabriel Jesus will never be capable of putting together Aubameyang's best seasons. But in that season, he improved Arsenal as a football team. So he isn't maybe as good a striker as Aubameyang, or at least when Aubameyang's at his best. But the value he brings to his team elevates Arsenal. That's a good deal. You've done well. That's how Man United have to approach the situation. The final thing I want to say here is Man United can by no means sell Marcus Rashford to a rival. I said it in the summer with Jadon Sancho, and I'm being proven right here. And I'm going to repeat it with Marcus Rashford. I said at the time, you cannot sell Jadon Sancho to a rival, especially for the fee that you're kind of selling him for. Doesn't matter how little you rate Jadon Sancho. For me, I'm not even a huge Jadon Sancho fan, but why would you even give the possibility of strengthening a rival? You look at Jadon Sancho now at Chelsea, and again, he's not lighting up the world at Chelsea. He's not the best player in the world, but he's improved them. He has helped Chelsea get better, and you've done it by basically giving him on loan for a year. And then even if they want to buy him, it's going to be like 25 million. You improved Chelsea for practically nothing. Don't make that same mistake with Marcus Rashford. If it's possible, by all means, push him towards a foreign team, whether it's a PSG, a Barcelona. I don't know who's going to be in for him. I'm just throwing out names here. But push that exit towards a European team. Do not make the same mistake. Big Premier League sides should not be strengthening the way I've seen in the past few seasons with Chelsea and Arsenal, Arsenal and Chelsea, City and Arsenal. Stop doing it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Even if you don't think the player you have on your hands is that great, why even take the risk of helping a direct rival in the Premier League you're competing in? It makes no sense to me. And you look at the Sancho situation now. We gave away an attacker in a position that we were already pretty light in, both in quality and in numbers, to a rival, and he's improved them. What did we gain from it? What? Lost wages that we didn't even go and spend on someone else. I don't know. For me, it doesn't make any sense. But I really urge United, do not sell Rashford to an Arsenal. Do not sell Rashford to a Liverpool. Do not sell Rashford to a Chelsea or to a City. Don't. Because you might be happy with the fee that you get in return for him. But if Rashford ends up banging at those clubs, the only one that's going to have egg on their face is us. Don't do it. But that's my opinions on Marcus Rashford. I think we have to sell him. I think, for me, he would be one of those guys I'm looking to move on in the summer. Not because he's the worst player at the club, but just overall, I think to move on into a new era, to help fund what could be a potentially successful rebuild, and also to maybe even further in one of the best academy graduates we've had in the last few years, to help him, the best course of action for all parties here, move on. Sometimes a separation in a relationship that you thought was so destined to succeed is the best course of action here. No party maybe wants it deep down, but the best thing isn't what everybody wants. And I think the best thing for Man United and the best thing for Marcus Rashford is to move on at the end of the season. Let me know what you guys think, though. Comment your thoughts, like, share, subscribe. As always, the channel is massively growing, and I can only thank you guys for it. Without further ado, we will see you next time. Peace.